we are going to continue from where we ended last week. Last week we discussed transpiration, which is the process by which plants lose water in the form of water vapor across the surface of the plant. Today we are going to look at some of the experiments in transpiration, and we are going to start with the experiment to show that plant shoots give off water during transpiration. That is the aim of the experiment. And the apparatus or materials to be used, we are going to use a glass plate, we are going to use a potted plant, we are going to use a polythene bag, a bell jar, and plasticine. In our procedure, as we can see it from there, this is the setup. A potted plant, this one, which is well watered, is put on a glass plate. Secondly, the pot is enclosed inside a polythene bag. Afterwards, the potted plant is enclosed or is put into a bell jar. Then we end by adding plasticine at this area and somewhere here. The reason as to why we add plasticine, sometimes we can use Vaseline to prevent entry of water vapor from the atmosphere. We also enclose this pot in a polythene bag to prevent movement of any water vapor from this pot into the bell jar. We also set up a control experiment. Now the main aim of our experiment is to show that only plants carry out transpiration. That's why in the control experiment we do not include the plant. What happens when we leave the two experiments in sunlight for 5 hours? This is the observation. Drops of a colorless liquid are seen on the walls of the bell jar. What do we do to confirm that the drops of a colorless liquid is water? We use a substance known as anhydrous copper 2 sulfate, which is white in color. When we mix it with the drops of a colorless liquid on the walls of the bell jar, the white anhydrous copper 2 sulfate turns blue. When it turns blue, then we confirm that the drops of a colorless liquid is water. That is the chemical test for water. It is only water which can change anhydrous copper 2 sulfate from white to blue. However, in the control experiment, drops of a colorless liquid do not form on the walls of the bell jar. Therefore, drops of a colorless liquid condense on the inside walls of the bell jar. When tested using anhydrous copper 2 sulfate, it turns from white to blue. Conclusion: a transpiring shoot gives off water. Here we are having a simple question which we will try out. And somewhere here we have a few questions which you can answer. The second experiment, we are going to compare the rate of transpiration on the upper and the lower surface of the leaf. As we know that the leaf has the upper epidermis or the upper surface and the lower surface. In this experiment, we want to confirm and see which surface releases more water vapor during transpiration. Materials required: we have to use a potted plant, 2 glass slides, we are going to use clips, and also pieces of blue cobalt chloride paper. This paper is the one which is going to confirm the presence of water. When water is given out and comes into contact with cobalt paper, it turns to pink. Procedure. Attach pieces of blue cobalt quad paper on both sides of a leaf, which is still attached on the parent plant, using glass slides and clips. The time taken for each cobalt quad paper, i.e. on the upper and the lower surface, to turn pink is noted. We have this paper on the upper surface and the paper on the lower surface. The one which will turn pink faster, it will be the paper which has been put on the side which has more stomata, because we already know that most of the water passes through the stomata in the form of water vapor by diffusion. What are the observations? The pieces of quad paper on the lower surface of the leaf turns pink in a shorter time compared to the piece of the chloride paper on the upper surface. This means that the lower surface contains more or has more stomata compared to the upper surface, or most of the water in form of water vapor passes on the lower surface through the stomata. Remember, cobalt quad paper can also be used to test for the presence of water. Therefore, from this experiment, we can conclude that most of the water in form of water vapor passes on the lower side of the leaf. That's why the reason as to why there are more stomata on the lower side of the leaf is to reduce on the rate of water loss during transpiration. Most of the plants that grow in conditions of high temperatures and sunlight, they don't have stomata on the upper surface. They have stomata on only the lower surface, and there are also very few to reduce the surface area for water loss. Now, when the roots have absorbed water, what happens? What forces are responsible for the upward movement of water through the xylem up the plant to the leaves, where it is used for growth and development and also for photosynthesis. Today we are going to look at those forces which are responsible for that. And today we are going to start with root pressure. If you have ever observed in this drawing, when the stem of a plant, like a purple plant, when it is cut somewhere here, sometimes it continues to pass out some water for some period of time, meaning that there is a force in the roots. That force is the one which continues to push water upwards, and that force is called root pressure. If we go back to water absorption, when water is absorbed by the roots by the process known as osmosis, water accumulates in the xylem. What makes water to accumulate in the xylem is the secretion of salts by the endodermis. The endodermis secretes salts in this region. The high concentration of salts in this region causes movement of water. When water moves and accumulates in this region, it causes a hydrostatic pressure which pushes water upwards. And this force which causes the movement of water upwards and is caused by the absorption of the water by the roots is called root pressure. And is the same force which is responsible for guttation, which we describe. Therefore, root pressure is the force which develops in the roots as a result of continuous absorption of water and it causes the upward movement of water through the xylem. However, this force cannot push water up to the leaves, apart from very short plants and many herbaceous plants. We are going to look at other forces which are responsible for the upward movement of water. The next force is capillarity. Capillarity is the ability of fluids to move through narrow tubes. And in this case, we are going to look at the ability of water to pass through narrow tubes. Capillarity is caused by two forces. We have cohesion force and adhesion. Cohesion, that is the force between molecules of the same substance. However, adhesion, that is the force between molecules of different substances. For example, if you look at this drawing, when you put water in a beaker, it forms such meniscus. In this meniscus, there is always some water molecules which try to move upward. It is because that the adhesive force between the walls of the beaker and the water molecule is high. However, this water molecule does not continue to move upwards because the effective cohesive force, the effective cohesive force in this region is greater than the adhesion between the walls of the beaker and the water molecule. However, this is a large tube. If we use a very small capillary tube where there is a single water molecule which moves upwards, you find that the adhesive force will be greater than the effective cohesive force. That's why water can move upwards through narrow tubes because of adhesion. Water is being pulled along the surface of the capillary tube. You find that the transport systems which are responsible for the upward movement of water, those are the vessels and the tracheids which make up the xylem. They are made up of narrow tubes to allow movement of water by capillarity. Capillarity only occurs in narrow tubes. It's because in narrow tubes the effective adhesive force is greater than cohesion. And lastly, transpiration pull. This is the main force which is responsible for the upward movement of water and mineral salts in all the plants. That's why without transpiration, plants cannot transport water and mineral salts up the plant. We described transpiration. In this drawing, this is the surface of the leaf, the mesophyll layer. Increase in temperature, as we described, causes evaporation of water. When water evaporates, it goes into the air spaces in the form of water vapor, then diffuses. These cells gain a high concentration of solids and low water potential, which causes movement of water from these cells into this cell. You find that water in this region is dilute and is in high concentration. That's why it continues to move into the mesophyll cells by osmosis. In this video, we are seeing how the whole process takes place. Loss of water from the mesophyll cells causes these mesophyll cells to have a low water potential and high solid potential. Because the concentration of water in this cell is very low, Therefore, more water moves by osmosis from these cells into the mesophyll cells. However, as we've seen, that there exists cohesive forces between the water molecule, meaning that the water molecule which is absorbed by the mesophyll cells will also pull another water molecule, and the effect is transmitted. When this water molecule is moving upwards, it also pulls another water molecule below it because of the existence of cohesive force. Cohesive force is a force between molecules of the same substance. For example, here we are dealing with the water. This effect is transmitted down the plant in what it is known as a transpiration stream. However, in addition to that, there is also another force which exists, and this force is known as adhesion. We found that the water molecule which moves on the walls of the xylem cannot at any one time slip and goes backward because it is held by the adhesive force. Therefore, these two forces, both cohesion and adhesion, they are responsible for the upward movement of the water molecule. When one water molecule moves upwards, it also pulls another water molecule. At night, when the rate of transpiration is very low, water cannot move downward because it is being held by the walls of the xylem as a result of adhesion. In this drawing, everything is summarized. As a result of transpiration, water is lost from the leaves. Then the leaves, because they have low amount of water and highly concentrated, they absorb dilute water from the xylem into the cells of the leaf. This water which is absorbed into the cells of the leaf also absorbs other water molecules as a result of cohesion, and the effect is transmitted down the plant, and this causes a continuous movement of water molecules up the plant as a result of transpiration. However, as we have seen, that water cannot move downwards because of the adhesive force between the water and the walls of the xylem vessel. This is the main force which is responsible for the movement of water in all plants and is known as transpiration pull, which is caused as a result of transpiration. Therefore, transpiration pull is a force which is responsible for the upward movement of water up the plant through the xylem, and it is caused as a result of water loss in the form of water vapor from the leaves. The last thing we are going to discuss is translocation. Translocation is the movement of food substances within a plant. We are aware that food substances, they are manufactured by the leaves in the process known as photosynthesis. Then they are transported by a transporting tissue known as the phloem to all parts of the plant. The movement of these manufactured food substances in a plant is known as translocation and takes place in the phloem. We are going to see how food substances which are manufactured by the leaves are transported to all parts of the plant. In this video, they are showing us the structure of the phloem. We are aware that the phloem is made up of sieve tubes and also the companion cells. Sieve tubes are responsible for the movement of the substances. However, the companion cell, they manufacture energy which is used in the movement of food substances. What happens here? Both water and food substances, and we are giving an example of sucrose, which is made by the leaves during photosynthesis. They both move downwards and also in other directions. Water, this is water, this is sucrose. They are moving downwards. Why is it that both water and sucrose move down the stem to other parts of the plant? What occurs is that the leaves manufacture food which is in the form of sucrose. This food accumulates in the sieve tubes. This is sucrose, food manufactured during photosynthesis, accumulates in the sieve tubes. But the sieve tubes, they are in close proximity with the xylem vessels which transport water, as you can see. Now, when sucrose accumulates here, as we know, it will cause the movement of water by osmosis from the neighboring xylem into the sieve tubes. Sucrose is manufactured by the leaves. It accumulates in the sieve tubes. We shall see that process which is responsible for the accumulation of sucrose in the sieve tubes. When it accumulates in the sieve tubes over the frame, they are in close proximity with the xylem. Therefore, this sucrose causes movement of water from the xylem into the sieve tubes. Because in the xylem, water is in high concentration, whereas water in the sieve tubes is in low concentration. As we know that water always moves from a region where it is in high concentration, and in this case it is the xylem, to a region where water is in low concentration, and in this case is the sieve tube, which makes up the phloem. When water accumulates in this region, it causes a hydrostatic pressure which is responsible for the downward movement of substances. What is the use of this food which is being transported? The food transported is used during respiration to provide energy for the plant. It is also used for growth and development during formation of structures. For example, the cellulose cell walls, they are made up of cellulose which is obtained from the manufactured food substances. In summary, here we are seeing the structure of the phloem. These are the companion cells. Their work is to produce energy used in transport of food substances. This is the sieve tube element, or the sieve tube cells. They are called elements because they are not living, they don't have a nucleus, they don't produce energy. It's only the companion cell which has mitochondria and a nucleus and provides energy used in transport of food substances. However, these are called vascular bundles because they are ever in close proximity, and here we are having the xylem. Water moves upwards. We saw that during transpiration. Now the food which is manufactured by the leaves is pumped into the sieve tube. By the companion cell. Some plants, they have specialized cells known as transfer cells. They transfer the glucose from the leaves or the source into the sieve tube. When glucose or sucrose accumulates in this region, it causes movement of some water from the xylem into in this direction. When water and food substances accumulate in the sieve tubes, it causes a pressure which pushes both water and some food substances downwards in a process known as mass flow. Lastly, we saw the importance of transpiration and also some of the disadvantages or some of the negative effects of transpiration to a plant that may lead to wilting and the drooping of leaves, which reduces productivity of the plant because the plant has lost more water compared to what it can absorb. That water, remember, it is used in the manufacture of food. Therefore, because there is less water, productivity of the plant reduces. And also, when leaves orient in such a position, they don't receive enough sunlight, which is required during photosynthesis. The same thing causes wilting, as we can see in this flower. It is because the flower is not absorbing enough water. That's why it goes in such a state, and it is known as water stress, whereby the plant loses more water compared to what it can absorb. Therefore, most of the plants have adaptations and structures which they use to reduce the rate of water loss, especially those plants that grow and survive in conditions of high temperature and light. The desert plants, or they are also known as xerophytic plants or xerophytes. Below are some of the ways of how plants reduce water loss. Some plants have narrow leaves. When leaves are narrow, it reduces the surface area for water loss. Some plants shed off their leaves in conditions of high temperature and light intensity. For example, during drought, when they have very few leaves, the rate of water loss reduces. Others, they have hairy leaves. Hairy leaves, they have a tendency to trap a thin film of water vapor around the leaf, which reduces the concentration gradient, thereby reducing rate of transpiration. We say that there is also cuticular transpiration. However, it can be reduced by the plant having a thick waxy cuticle. Some plants, they have a thick waxy cuticle on their leaf surface, which increases distance for the movement of water, thereby reducing water loss. Other plants on their leaves, they have very few stomata, and most of them they are found on the lower side, also reduce water loss. There is also change of Stomata Rhythm, as we see that not all plants open stomata during the day. Some plants, they close stomata during the day and they only open their stomata at night. That is also a modification which reduces water loss. And others, they have Sankini Stomata, which are also hairy. Sankini Stomata are stomata which are found in depressions of the leaf surface.